So today we have a bit of a special event with Sunil. So it will be a bit different. It will be a chat and a reflection about his experience. So I will start presenting as well. Up. Normally you should be able to see my screen. So a little agenda. So I will just take 5 minutes of your time to just explain you the golden rules and present you the PMI Germany chapter and the local group. Then Sunil and Thomas will have, as I mentioned, a little chat. So it will be more informal, so a self-reflection with some experience, past experience. So I think it will be really interesting for everybody. And lastly, I will just give you at the end the PDU code, some information on the next event, and you will be asked to as well give us a little feedback on the event. So stay until the end, please. Some guidelines. So please mute your microphone if you are not speaking. Use your full name so we can give you the PDU code at the end. And you are welcome to turn on your video. The chat is always open. I will make sure that if there is some questions, they will be raised. And afterward, you can always contact the speaker. We will give you, so he will give you his LinkedIn, so you can still raise questions afterwards. And as you saw, the session is recorded. And please don't use any AI bot as it is prohibited by the PMI. Oops, sorry. So a few words a bit about the PMI. The PMI German chapter has been established in 2020 with the merging of the 4 German chapters. So you can see we have 5 different regions. So West, North, East, Center, and South, with more than 25 local groups and 11,000 members of the PMI in Germany, with 5,000 chapter members. And we have more than 40 nationalities represented. So even in Germany, the PMI is quite diverse. We have more than 150 volunteers, and our little local group is based in Darmstadt, so 25 kilometers from Frankfurt. It's a very nice region with some wine, so you are as well welcome to visit. So our local group is an English-speaking local group with 7 volunteers from 7 countries. So we have Tufik is located in Lebanon, Olia in Stuttgart, Maria in Brussels, myself in Darmstadt, Almira in Darmstadt as well, Thomas in Rheinland-Pfalz, and Mohamed as well in Darmstadt. And since the beginning, we organized 2 times a month online event, and we had since the beginning more than 3,000 people. And so it's always a pleasure to host this event, and we have as well once a month face-to-face roundtable where we can all network and discuss together. So you are as well welcome to join. And if you want to be kept posted about our event, we have as well a LinkedIn group. So without more suspense, so I think you all know our speaker today, Sunil Prashara, former president and CEO of PMI. He's executive of the Saudi Wealth Fund, and he's as well quite dedicated in promoting environment and social responsibility. So he's as well board member of C4 Aircraft, non-profit organization promoting agroforestry. and he has an extensive background in different countries, in Europe, North America, Middle East, where he was located. So we have the pleasure to have him back to London. And because he was just a few days ago when we had the dry run, he was in Riyadh. So you can imagine the situation was a bit tense there. And he has as well a extensive background in telecom technology and services organization. And he has a distinction from the London Business School in leadership and strategy. So I will not take more time to present him, and I will let Thomas and Sunil have this little discussion, and I am sure it will be a lot of experiences and self-reflections that we can all learn of. Thank you very much, and give a warm welcome to Sunil.
Thank you.
Thank you, Florian. And I'm quite happy to have Sunil here on this call. You know, we are as a local group, we are looking for speakers or guests who bring a lot of interesting information to our audience, not only from the chapter, but also, you know, we have here people from Beirut and from Egypt and other things. And so this year we already had Jennifer Thorpe, and she also is on this call again, former PMI board chair and now a PMI fellow. Congrats, Jennifer, again for that. And we also have on the call Roberto, who was a board colleague of mine. And we had also in this group, not yet Roberto speaking, maybe this will come one day, but we had about 10 fellows already on this call, and it's my pleasure now to have asked my friend Sunil, you know, whom I met around 2018, 19, for the first time when he was sitting in the boardroom and being asked by the board members what his idea about a CEO at PMI would be. And in the end, you know, in this session, the board approved Sunil to become the new CEO at this time. But, you know, from this time, we had a lot of interactions, and although I left the board before Corona came, you know, this I understand is one of the biggest challenges that he had to tackle. And so, Sunil, from this, what we have done together in the beginning, you know, I think maybe not everybody knows you deeply. So, who are you beyond your titles? You know, can you a little bit open up about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, first of all, listen, Thomas,
Can
thank you
you
so
can
much.
you come closer?
Yeah, I'll get a bit closer because I think the microphone is not that good. So apologies if my face is too big in your screen. Just want to thank you first of all for inviting me. I have had a number of people that have asked in the past for me to have a chat, you know, and I've always kind of said, no, you know, I've got other things I'm working on. But when Thomas asks me, then I think, you know, it's worth probably having a chat and sharing some thoughts. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to have a chat with you. Okay, so who is Sunil? Well, I mean, you just went through my sort of resume on the previous slide, but if you strip away all the titles and everything, I guess what you would say is that I'm really committed to growth, and I like to be in environments where there's a lot of growth. And also, I'm very curious about people, and I've been very lucky because I've been able to work all over the world, from Singapore to the US, from Africa to Europe. And you know, the thing that really sort of I learned a lot from is how to work with lots of different cultures and different management styles and different ways of working. And not every single structure or framework is applicable in the environment that you're in. And so problems that are common problems in different parts of the world are addressed different ways in different parts of the world. I learned that very much so here in Saudi Arabia. So all these different leadership styles I always found that really fascinating, which is why I ended up doing this course at London Business, a master's in strategy and leadership. I came out of that course actually even with more questions and more curiosity to say, there's a never-ending way of dealing with situations and problem solving, and that evolves and changes as humanity changes. And what worked in a top-down world doesn't work in a different world. So it's really interesting to see how leadership styles are changing, and it's something that fascinates me. If you were to summarize, I guess, then you would say that, I'm very performance orientated. I work through people. I'm not a top-down manager or leader. And there's a lot of power in purpose. And that's something I learned a lot from in PMI, because it's such a purpose-driven organization. And up until that point of joining PMI, I'd always worked for a for-profits company, very sort of money-driven or value creation-driven, or shareholder value creation delivered. And it wasn't until I came to PMI that I realized, oh my God, there's so much more power when people feel passionate and what they believe in matters and they care about it. And I always used to say, how many volunteers has Accenture got or IBM got that believe in the company so much, willing to put their own time and effort for no monetary benefit because they really believe it? They don't have any. IBM has none. Thomas, how many of you worked at IBM for many years? How many volunteers did you have showing up at work every day to support IBM?
Well,
No,
I think
right?
I think there were some volunteers on the executive level who went beyond their remuneration, but yeah. So the normal employee was very much under stress, and it was a for-profit thing, very clear.
Exactly. So for me, I mean, purpose matters a lot, and I credit PMI for really sort of showing me that, visually about what that looks like. And so I think if you were to say, okay, who is Sunil? That's Sunil. Strip away the titles. It's about performance. It's about people, and it's about purpose.
Good. So, do you want to comment a little bit about where you're coming from? So, I know that you were born in Africa, actually,
Yeah.
and
So
and
yeah, I was
and
born.
and you are now living in the UK, and you lived in other places. Singapore, you mentioned already. But what is your background in your life? And I know you also were a boxing champ or trainer, at least.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I was born in. My parents were born in Kenya. My grandparents were brought from India to Kenya to help build the railways by the British. And so both my grandparents were both born in Kenya, and then they got married, and then my dad was also born there, and I was born there. My sister was born there. So Kenya we're Indian by sort of origin, but really sort of East African upbringing up until the age of 11. And then there was some trouble happening in Uganda. So with Idi Amin, so my father, who was a doctor, basically said it's time to move to the UK. So we moved to the UK, and actually, a funny story was we moved to Liverpool, and I was the first coloured face at school at the age of 13. Everybody, all 1,000 boys, it was a boys' school, all 1,000 boys were white, Caucasian, right? And I was the only one that was coloured skin in this school. And obviously, it was very intriguing to everybody. But I was also very shy, very nervous about how I was treated. So, and I was also a little bit worried that they may, I might get bullied. So when they asked me where I was from, I said, "Oh, I'm from Italy," and they'd never seen an Italian either, so they believed me. So for a short while, they all thought, "Oh, he's Italian." And then one day, my mom showed up in her sari, and then they said, "No, he's an Indian." So that was my sort of introduction to the UK. I grew up in the UK. I did my studies in London. And then I got the opportunity to move to my first job was with Mars Confectionery, and then I moved to the Netherlands, and I worked for a short while in the Netherlands. I joined a company there called Perot Systems. It was run by a guy called Ross Perot, best, actually. I was there for 10 years, not in the Netherlands, but all over the place in Europe. But that was one of the best companies I ever worked for. And Ross Perot, for whatever his political standing is one thing, but his business acumen was insane. So I always feel as I learned from the best. Very impressive entrepreneur. Yeah, I started off in finance, 10 years or so in finance. And he basically said, he told me one day, there are only 3 jobs in the business world, in the for-profits world. Job number 1 is the person who's making the promise. That's essentially the sales. Job number 2 is the guy who's executing on the promise. That's essentially the delivery guy. And then there's a person who's keeping both of those people honest, which is the finance guy, to make sure that the promise being made and what's being delivered actually fulfills the financial goals of the company. And then to keep all 3 people honest is the CEO. Every other role is a support function for those 3 people, whether you're the sales guy making the promise, the operations guy, the finance guy. And including the CEO's job is there to make those guys successful. I lost you. You still there?
Yeah. No, it's great. You're still here.
Yeah, I lost you. I don't know. Okay, good. Something just popped up. So that was Peru, and then that was the Netherlands, France, India. Worked in those different places. I moved up in my career somewhat. Became the European CFO, and then Ross basically said, "Sunil, they all call you Dr. No, because you keep saying no to all the sales guys, and you're the finance guy, and the sales guys don't like you. And so tomorrow, I'd like you to see what it's like to get a yes out of people. And I'd like you to move into the sales department." And that was really scary. I remember it to this day. And he was right. It is very difficult to get a yes out of a client. It's very difficult to get a yes out of different departments that are not your own department, or your people that you don't work for you and they're not part of your direct leadership. You need to get a yes out of them. That is very difficult. It's very easy to say, nah, this is not going to make money. I don't believe in it. You're not going to spend any more resources. Very, very easy. And I didn't realize. But I worked my way through that. Ultimately, at the end of leaving Perot, I was the head of sales for Perot Systems. I moved from finance to sales. And I managed to get a job with Accenture, which took me to Singapore. Worked on a ton of different deals there. That was all about deal making and commercial and large scale outsourcing contracts. I became a partner, Accenture. And then one of my clients was Nokia. I knew the CEO, Rajiv Suri. He said, I need a commercial guy who's a sales guy, not just a sales guy. And you seem to have both of those. And I'm like, yeah, 40 salespeople. And I need someone to lead them. And up until that point, I'd only managed, I don't know, maybe 60 people, 70 people. And he said, I have 14,000. How would you like to manage 14,000 people? It was shocking. It was a massive pivot in my career. And I said, look, I'll go for the interview, but I don't think I'm going to get the job. And I got the job.
Good.
Phenomenal role and global role, sales, business development, all the marketing, all of the sales operations, everything. Very interesting role, extremely global. I spent most of my time in an airplane. And Nokia went through a huge restructure, and I was heavily involved in that restructure. That side of my career is not great because we had to let a lot of people go. Very painful emotionally, very deep cut into the organization. I led a big chunk of that for Nokia, reducing those 14,000 people down to low thousands. In fact, just a couple of thousand. That was not easy. And then I eventually ended up with Vodafone. And from Vodafone, which is a very operational role. And that's where I really learned about. I think I talked about it in my interview at PMI that, I was given this huge project by Vittorio Colau, $10 billion project to upgrade the whole of Vodafone's infrastructure. And I really didn't know where to start. So I know how to say no, I know how to say yes, but I didn't know how to do it. Right? And this was the opportunity to learn how to do it, how to do a really complex, big project across 23 different countries, every single technology. And I didn't have a clue how to start, where to start. And I remember calling, we had a program office, and I said, look, we've got these 60 projects totaling $10 billion. And the CEO said, Sunil, you're accountable. and I don't know where to start. And this guy said, I know what we need to do. We need to call a bunch of project managers and program managers together in a room and let them work it out. And that's what we did. And it was incredible to see, the second promise, which is deliver on the promise, to see how that all comes together. That was my first insight into, okay, the structured thinking that's required to work with resources across the globe to a structured plan, to a structured budget over a time frame where everything's interconnected, and come out with in terms of a business case. And that was phenomenal. So that was I spent 4 years doing that, and then I had my first CEO job, working for Experio. I now knew how to say no. I knew how to say yes and how to get a yes out of it. I also started to learn, and I think you're always learning about how to get things done. And that Vodafone gave me, and that gave me the opportunity then to say, okay, I should really crack on with the CEO role. So the CEO role was I did a couple of one large company, Experio, and then one smaller company, and then PMI. And then after PMI, it was time to reboot, rethink. I went back to university, fell in love with ESG and sustainability and large programs and projects, learned about what was going on in Saudi after doing my master's. They wanted me to be the CEO of one of their very large programs, and I didn't want to be a CEO anymore. After LBS, I learned a lot about you don't need to keep going up that ladder. You can actually jump off it and focus on the things you enjoy doing and the things that matter to you as an individual. And for me, Saudi Arabia and the Vision 2030 project, and the size and scale and impact of a sustainability, a sovereign fund, rather than a private equity that's got much broader remit, which about standing up a country rather than just making money, really appealed to me. And that's what took me to Riyadh. And that brings me to today, to where I am today.
Great. Thank you, Sunil. And if I compare that to my career, I don't have the finance part, but I certainly have the sales part and the projects part, delivery part, what you mentioned. So I have to apologize a little bit to the audience because the connectivity of Sunil, he's in a hotel in London, and the connectivity is not as perfect as from my home office. I must say, sometimes, but I hope we can all hear you. So Sunil, let me ask you a further question, because you have been the CEO of PMI, and looking back to this time, what do you consider the most meaningful accomplishments or turning points during your tenure?
There's a lot. I mean, can you hear me, Thomas? Because
Yes.
You all can hear me? Okay. Yeah, when I think about my time at PMI, first of all, it was fantastic period, and I really loved it. It was a fantastic team, great support from the board, and it was going through a lot of change. Anticipated a lot of change that was happening, and I'd been told beforehand that we were expecting a lot of change, but when I got in there, I didn't realize how much change that was going to take place. And so there are a few things which I think I would say stand out for me, and then there are a few things that we achieved which I thought were really good. The things that really stood out for me, I think one was, I'll never forget, what was really, really powerful was, it's a bittersweet period because it was the Tanzania conference, Africa conference, and people had come from all over Africa for that conference, and they were all wearing, at dinner, they were all wearing their national clothes, and they were sitting on their own tables. So Uganda, Zambia, Kenya, so on. So all had their little table, and they were all wearing their local clothes and showing off their clothes, which was beautiful. But when they were having dinner, they were all sitting collectively, each chapter sitting on their own table. When the music started, they all stopped dancing, but then they all mixed up, and you couldn't tell while the song was playing who was who. It was just a flash of color. And then when the song or the music stopped, and then everyone went back to their table, then again you would see the yellow color on one side and the red color on the other side, and all the different, and all of a sudden it would all be like each country represented on a table. But every time the music started, it came like the mash of colors, and that was amazing to see that, because the next day I was on stage, and the reason why I say it's bittersweet is because whilst I was on stage, Tejas got a phone call. Tejas was a board member, got a phone call. I think it was Tejas who got the phone call that said that my father had gone into a coma back in the UK, and I was on stage when that happened. And but I was in the middle of a speech, and so he didn't say anything until after the speech. And in the speech, I was talking about this dinner that we'd had, and I was like, you know what? One of the most amazing things about PMI is you can have a situation where everyone's all different in different chapters, but when they all come together, it just creates this incredible collage of colors. And I said, it's a bit like you have one song can bring everyone together. You have one dance which you're all doing, and it's a team, and it doesn't matter where you've come from or what chapter you belong to. It's just one, and it was a beautiful sight. And so that actually got coined as a phrase that I used to use a lot, which was one song, one dance, one team. And that became a little bit in Tanzania, that became for the Tanzania chapter a bit of their sort of way that they used to describe PMI. So I like that. That was a big thing. So I labeled that point because it is one team. But there are many others. I mean, like the COVID response took us all by surprise. So dealing with COVID, there is no book you can pick off the shelf, I used to say, that just says, in case of COVID, do A, B, and C. It was completely unknown what we had to do. And the way that the leadership team and the board and the staff went about dealing with COVID was incredible. And I was part of a team of CEOs that were very large companies, like Lego and Levi's and Accenture and BCG, the CEOs of those guys, and myself in like this group of people wondering about how to handle COVID. And I have to say that our thought leadership of the leadership team and the board and the staff was way beyond the thinking of some of these other companies, largely because we were purpose driven. The other guys were really worried about what the shareholders would say if they made a certain, and I was more interested in what's the safety of our people, right? And what's the safety of the profession? Not if I make this decision, this is going to cost me money. It's a completely different mindset. And they really loved it. So we were very, I'm not sure many people in the board or staff know that we were very influential in changing the thinking of people like Bill Gates, who was also on there, to say, actually, the way we are thinking about COVID is as unique as anyone else's, and actually more practical and more practical and more real, because it matters than some of these other companies that are making decisions because it's going to save them some shareholder value or whatever. So that COVID response and how we reacted to that across the globe was phenomenal. I think if I look at some of the wins, two things come to mind. The regional model. I think getting a regional representation was something I really pushed for. Official to get the voice of all the different regions within PMI, getting their inputs in a much more structured way, in a standardized way, so that we could respond to them. There'd been a lot of back chat in the past that the chapters were not being listened to in remote places. And so in an attempt to try and get that resolved, we set up a regional model, and I think it was in its infancy, but it had landed reasonably well. So I think that was a win. The new brand, I'm super proud of it. I think the work that went on the new brand, I was very lucky to be there as the CEO when the new brand was launched. I would say that's probably in my career, in a 30-year career, one of the standout things that I think a lot about when we actually launched that and the way we launched it and how everybody was so supportive of that and how it's landed and continues to be, a very vibrant brand. So yeah, congratulations to everybody who supported that one. And then we actually had to go down the.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think this brand even won some prizes, didn't it?
Yeah, I think it won Stevie Award, a couple of Stevie Awards. Yeah, I mean, I think that the marketing team and the brand team and the board, really went out. I can't remember who the members were on the board, but that was it was a tough. Everyone had a lot of opinions what color we should use and what we should do here. And, it always is, but we landed on something that was so good. And it did. It's won awards, and even to this day, it looks really fresh. It's a good brand. The logo is great, and it shows individuality, but it shows consistency as well. And I haven't seen anywhere anything that comes close. So it's really, really good. Well, I think the final thing is probably we had a crack at just one more thing I want to talk about is we had a crack at sort of expanding the if you like the product portfolio. So we had some success in that. We did the construction certification. Thanks to you, Thomas. You deserve a lot of credit for sticking with that idea, and I think that's done really well. Ben, who leads that's a good buddy of mine, and I know he's done a grand job. I don't know if he's still doing it. I haven't been in touch with him for a long time, but he grabbed that and ran with it, and I think it's been a really big success story, or I hope it has anyway. But I think it's been a success story. I think there's others that we also had a crack at. We tried to introduce more agile thinking. I think we did acquire during my time this discipline agile. So that allowed us to put some more agile thinking into our project management sort of scope of work, if you like. So I think that was really good. And so if I boil it all down, all of these things, right, whether it was COVID response or the brand or whatever, it was all about connecting. I think that if I was to say there's a legacy in the short time I was there as the CEO, I think the organization became better connected with the digital transformation and the regional model, a couple of new certifications, more relevance. I think we got closer to the volunteers. I think we got closer to the chapters. They started to feel as though they were being heard. The job wasn't done, but it was something. I think that was good. And I think ultimately the communication. I think the communication team, the marketing, I think they did a grand job during quite a tough period. We were doing a digital transformation, and we're dealing with COVID at the same time. Not easy. And so I think everyone did a good job doing all.
Yeah. Thanks for these reflections, and we will come back to project management in a later question. But for the current time, you are living in Saudi Arabia for some time now, and you just came from Riyadh. So on Monday we had a short call. You were calling from Riyadh. Connectivity was much better. So you came.
Sorry about the connectivity.
Yeah. So what brought you there, and where are you working, or are you working there?
Yeah, so I work for a company called PIF, which is the public investment fund. It's the sovereign wealth fund of Saudi Arabia, and it's chaired by MBS, the ruler of Saudi Arabia. And the purpose of the organization is to help Saudi Arabia to create industries away from oil and gas. So the vast majority of the GDP of the country comes from oil and gas related industries. And so the whole purpose of the Vision 2030, which is MBS's vision, is to create 13 different industries outside of oil and gas. So these are like AI is one. AI and technology is one of the industry groups. And so there's an enormous amount of investment going into that. Another one is financial services. Another one is aviation. Another one is tourism. Another one is sport. And there are 13 of these. And many of these are being built. Structure, they don't have the thinking, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the expertise. And so they have to build it all from scratch. And that was the biggest attraction, because PIF acts like a private equity, but it has an additional agenda. And the agenda is more public sector, i.e. building the infrastructure of a country is more important than the profitability of the actual project itself. So, for example, I was asked to build, set up a digital bank that was focused on small and medium-sized enterprises, of which there are about 10 million in Saudi Arabia, all underserved by the current traditional banks. So that whilst this digital bank was supposed to have a return on investment, its real agenda was to serve those 10 million companies with and solve their working capital issues so that they could focus on growing their business as opposed to fighting to find out how they pay their next bill. And that takes a big agenda item away from these small and medium-sized enterprises so they can scale. So the idea was, okay, this digital bank might be small, but it enables the small and medium-sized enterprise across the whole of Saudi Arabia to grow. And I found that brilliant. You know, it's really purpose-driven. And so it's got the private equity mindset, but it's applying it to a public sector, agenda, which is infrastructure growth. And that's what attracted me to Saudi. And they wanted me to be the CEO of a very large company. And I really didn't want to do that, because that would just dig me into one specific company in one specific industry. And I wanted to be across all 13 industries and see how I can help across all of them. And so then they created this role, which is really good. It's essentially, my job is to set up companies. I go in as the employee number one, and I go in as the CEO, and I build a company from scratch. Everything from getting the company registered, to building the infrastructure, getting the office, doing the branding, which is the bit I love the most, hiring the C-suite, getting the business up and running, and then scaling it. And then once you hire the C-suite, slowly handing over to the CEO the reins so that they can then drive the chariot and scale. And then I typically will sit on the XCOM or on the board or on one of the committees to just keep an eye on the whole thing, with a view that if the wheels fall off or if something happens, they can always inject me back in there. But then I move on to the next project and the next one. And each one takes, you can be working on 2 or 3 at the same time. I was working on 3 very big ones. Like there's a company called Humane, which you may have heard of. It's $1 billion company. The initial stages of setup of that company, I was the one who set that up. So I was the first employee on Humane. Now it's $100 billion investment in AI, but it has its own leadership team, its own management, and they've thrown me away and put me onto a new project. So, I did my bit and then I move on to the next, which I find much better than just being the CEO of one company.
Yeah.
So that's PIF, and that's why I'm there.
Being down there, in that region, which is now very much challenged, and I don't want to talk about this so much, the current developments, although I know you also have some ideas on that. But maybe you can share a little bit about the difference in culture in this area, what you observe, what is specific for that culture, what you don't see is, say, in the Western world or even in the Asian world, what you just see there.
So I'd never worked in the Middle East. Like, I'd been there many, many times, and I had the same preconceived notions of what it's like to work there and how people are treated and everything like that. And so that really I was very worried about what that was going to be like, whether it was true or not true, or, I had to make my own mind up. And I remember meeting my team, and I had my first day, and I had like these 4 or 5 ladies that worked for me, and they were all completely covered, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'd never been in a situation where the entire team or the ladies are all covered apart from just their face, And I thought, how am I going to deal with this? How do I, it's very strange. It's unnerving if you're not used to it. And after a while, it starts to dawn on you that why this actually works. Right? Because in a strange kind of way, it's a great leveler. It equalizes everybody. So the only thing that you can sort of differentiate someone on is their intellect or their knowledge or their expertise, which is what you should be doing, right? But everybody has a bias, right? They all have different biases, and this equalizes everybody. And I didn't realize how much of an effect that has. And so I have an incredible team of people. They're very Saudi. They are used to it's like a top-down leadership style. The manager or the leader pulls all the shots, really. But that doesn't stop people from speaking their opinion. So they will speak their opinion, but they will follow the lead of the leader. And it doesn't have to be a strong leader for them to do that. But they'll do it anyway because of the leader. So that was one thing I noticed. The other thing was that I'm a Hindu, and Islam is very different to the Hindu religion. So getting a better understanding of that has been over the last 3 years is really good. I mean, it's an incredible religion. It has its extremes, as do many other religions, but as a religion goes, it's beautiful. And the people who follow it, they follow it with 100% commitment, which is, everything that they do is backed up by what their religion says. And I think that sense of focus is what gives that whole region strength. And that's something that I learned whilst I've been there. I've got enormous admiration for that. I feel very sad about what's happening there right now. I don't know. There's just so many moving parts in that. That's a project I would not want to have to handle. I mean, that's like it's for the region. It's like COVID on steroids. There are people working from home, but the difference is they can still go out. But there's a risk if they go out that something could happen to them. It's the same, and I can, I just feel for my friends who are still out there, in Saudi, in Oman, in Dubai, who are having to put up with this, and also in Iran. I have some great friends. I was with them out for dinner with them last night, and at the dinner table, incidentally, Thomas, there was me and a couple of Australians, a couple of Americans, and a couple of Iranians, and we were all getting on like a house on fire. Like it was, what's happening over there. It almost seemed like it wasn't really happening, but we knew it was happening, but we didn't talk about it. We just, we were just being human together. I just wish we could be like that. All of that.
I have experienced similar discussions, during the Yugoslavian war when we had tables with people who were friends before and who were even relatives, and the same happened in the Ukraine-Russian case. Some Ukrainians don't really understood what happened, but now the borders and the clashes become more personal and life-threatening, and this is changing all the behaviors. But
one of the things I would say, Thomas, is that we can't. I mean, I was reflecting on that dinner that we had last night. You can't ignore it. You can't just say it's not happening and just be friends. You can't. There are too many people who are impacted indirectly. I mean, like, I came back to the UK not because I felt unsafe. I came back to the UK like a couple of days ago because my mom, who's 85 years old, couldn't sleep at night because she was worried about her son. And she's 85 years old. And the last thing I want her to be thinking about at that age, and adding additional stress to her at that age, is that she's worried about her son. So I think you have to think broader than just you yourself. I mean, the relief in my family, broader family, that I made the decision to come was huge. And we all have a responsibility. So I don't think you can ignore it. I think, the impact is broad and to each individual. It's a very sad situation. Yeah.
It is. So you talked a bit about your activities in Saudi Arabia, about the PIF, and how you're involved in setting up companies in different industries. So I think you saw project management develop at the leading edge in this area. And given your background even before that, when you were leading PMI, you have a good insight into PMI. So what would you think is the future of project management? So it's evolving rapidly, and we all have the hype teams of AI and digital transformation and increasing complexity and all of this. So what's your view on this? What are the most important capabilities that project leaders need to develop?
Gosh. One of the things I think I've seen happen in Saudi is there are enormous number of projects, and it's really easy to have a vision. Oh yeah, let's grow, let's build 20 stadiums, let's build 100 hotels, let's build 20 airports. And it's really easy to do that, to have that vision. It's not easy to execute, right? And the more and more you set up, the more and more obligations you stick into your program or your project, the harder it is going to be able to achieve it, right? And it builds that there's a knock-on effect. If something slows down somewhere, it's going to have an effect somewhere else. And we have seen that in PIF big time. There are so many projects, so many stakeholders, so many consultants, so many expats, so many people who know what they're doing, but also so many people who don't know what they're doing, and so many people in positions of power and vested and in different ways that it becomes extremely complex, extreme at the unbelievable level. And I think that's one of the things that, as a project manager, program manager, or anybody who's responsible in delivery, navigating complex systems and processes into the future is going to be critical. And I think that it's a critical skill. And having the influence, despite not having the authority, but having the influence to be able to change things is really, really important. So to do that, you need adaptability. To do that, you need judgment, because you may not have all the information and you're going to have to make a call.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to orchestrate credibly. There's loads of people that will say, oh yeah, we need to do this, and they'll orchestrate a ton of people because it's a top-down environment. That's not real orchestration. Is when you convince people this is the right thing to do, and they do it without you having to sort of keep an eye on them, and you have trust that they're going to do it. And then to have that orchestration, you need strong decision making, especially during uncertain times. But it's not just judgment, but decision making. There's the worst thing you can do is not make a decision in this kind of situation. It just gets more complex. And it's okay if you make a mistake, as long as you can respond and adapt quickly to it. So I think it boils down to human leadership, systems thinking. It's beyond. I think it's way beyond like what's the budget, what's the schedule. I think AI will help you with all of that. Right? What I'm talking about now is something that's very human, right? Uniquely human. So I think that's where I haven't really thought about how project management should develop since I left PMI, to be perfectly honest. But to be, everybody moves on, right? So for me, those are the things I would say. And I don't know whether that's happening or whether it's not happening. I don't know. I haven't stayed close to it. But there will be the things based upon my experience, 3 years in one of the most complex environments with incredible vision. I don't know if you know about the scale and size of the programs. They are massive, and not all of them are going well. Many of them are. And there's constant adjustment, readjustment, and reevaluation, and looking at the ROI, and looking at the timeframes and everything. So it's a very complex environment, but at the same time, super exciting. Right? So
Yeah, yeah.
It's good.
Well, for me, I agree. It's exciting. It's life, it's surprising, and you can do something and you will have success, but sometimes you will have a fallback, have to get up again and do it again. Yeah. I agree to you. I recall a story that Ben Green is telling when he's giving a presentation, and Ben, maybe the audience doesn't know, but Ben Green was the architect who was building the Marina Sands Bay Hotel. If you know that building with the three towers and the infinity pool up there, and in some of his presentations he shares this story, and one sentence he says there is, we didn't know where we were. We had maybe 1,500 contractors. We had things going on. And he shows one picture when he's standing on top of that hotel without a guardrail, just looking down 200 meters or what it is. And that's, we had no clue what's going on. So this is the program manager and the chief architect of such a hotel. But you have still to have a vision and to have to build up all that complex system of people working with that, and that's an exemplary case how it can work and how it does work. We have all these mega projects, we have the Olympic Games, we have the grand challenges, and it's all about complexity, and somehow leaders manage that, and it's not by having a schedule or data-driven decision making and all of that. It's really just by being human leaders.
I think I agree, and I think that's a great story. And I remember, in fact, I've stood on that. Ben took me there. I was in Singapore during the time when Ben was building that MBS, Marina Bay Sands, and that walkway that he's talking about without the guardrail, he literally walked me around that. This was before PMI, actually. So I was at Accenture at the time, and he walked me around there, and I was like, "This guy's crazy, man. I would never. Why have you done this?" But yeah, I think that one of the things that I think that I find still is a issue, even in would I say in PIF, not in PMI, I don't know, but in PIF is the level of appreciation by other stakeholders of the value that project managers and program managers bring. I don't know which side of that problem sits on. Is it a problem with the mindset of the program and project management, or is it a problem with the leadership that don't appreciate it? Because for me, right, the most credible person, right, in any of these programs is the project manager. They know what's going on, and they know what's going on better than anyone else, better than the finance guys. But on the projects I worked on, and I've worked on a number of them since at PIF, the person I'm speaking to more than anyone else is the project manager. More than anyone else, every day, every single day, they're right next to me. They're getting me out of trouble when my boss asks me what's going on. They sometimes put me into trouble, but they keep the guardrails. They give alternatives. They look for synergies. They look for cost savings, time savings. It's more than just reporting, right? And I don't know how we solve that problem, because my actual boss, when I tell him my job managing all these programs and is essentially a project manager, he does not like me saying that. And I'm like, but that's what I'm doing. I'm doing exactly what these guys, I am executing on a program of work or a project. That's what I'm doing. Call it what you want, right? But that's what I'm doing. But he does not like me saying that. So that's a challenge that I felt when I was at PMI, and it's still there. And that's something that I think, you need strength of character and resilience. You mentioned it earlier, resilience to be able to deal with that.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah. Does that make
Well,
sense, Thomas?
yeah, well, absolutely. And thanks for sharing this. And I'm happy we are on the same wavelength, but maybe that's why I invited you. So, so yeah. looking back again at PMI, what do you think are your the initiatives you were working on, not necessarily initiated by yourself, but what do you think would have the most lasting impact on PMI's direction at this time? It's 4 years ago or so, yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that maybe people realize now is I think we were onto something when we were doing the citizen develop thing, because citizen developers today is the same thing as prompt engineering for AI. It's pretty much the same thing. You are passing instructions in a non-codified way to an application that then executes on that problem or solve or gives you a solution to it in some way. Maybe not always the right solution, but it will give you a response. And you don't actually know any coding to do that. And prompt engineering, you can almost write in English. In fact, I remember I used to say one day, you might be able to say, Siri, build me an app, and literally just say it, and it will build you the app, right? And at the time, it was almost like a vision, but that's actually happening now. There are we used to talk about autonomous cars. Now we're talking about autonomous companies, one employee, and everything else is codified and automated. I met, when I was at London Business School, one of the founders of designers of ChatGPT, a guy called Arkadar. He's one of my best friends now. And he was having this vision back in 2019 when he was saying, one day there will be autonomous companies, not just autonomous cars. That's actually quite scary. Right? So I think we had the opportunity to, I don't know where we went with Citizen Do. As I said, I haven't stayed in touch, but that would have been the big issue that everyone talks about now is governance. How do you govern AI? And I think we were onto something, because had we developed that thinking around citizen developer, we might have been the independent, global, not-for-profits, unbiased organization to put a framework in place to govern AI. That's the big opportunity I genuinely feel that we missed. Now it's the cat's out the bag and trains at the station, or whatever, but that would have been a big one. And that would have landed what project management is all about.
Yeah,
I think, So that was one thing. But I mean, there are many other things that we did. Look, the brand was fantastic. The construction certifications, fantastic. Actually trying to get something out of Brightline beyond just some PowerPoint presentations, that attempt was good to do that. The digital transformation, taking a company that was largely analog in many areas, not everywhere, in some areas, and making it digital. And COVID helped in that, obviously, in some bizarre kind of unexpected way, but making it very digital, moving the certifications to more proctored because we had to, putting the security in place to allow us to do that. So a lot of great things I look back on and say, you know what, that was a period of transformation. And I think if you were to ask, that's why I said earlier, I embrace discomfort. That's me. And I'm one of these guys that build things, make it happen, pass it on, someone else takes it on. I'm happy with that. That's cool. I didn't realize I'd be happy with that, but that is what lights me up. If you want to know what makes me jump out of bed, it's solving a problem like that and then handing it over to someone else and saying, okay, I'm going on to the next one. Yeah, that's me.
Great, thank you, Sunil. So let's try to open up to the audience. If the audience has a question or a comment, we would be happy to hear it. Maybe don't be shy. This audience, sometimes we are a little bit shy as Germans. Sometimes in a heated discussion we are not shy, but so far it's not yet a heated discussion.
Yeah.
So anybody.
I hope I haven't been too controversial, but one of the things that I think those who know me is that I wear my heart on my sleeve. I call it as it is. It's a strength and a weakness. Okay, but in my career, of which 35 years now, it's largely been a strength. So, I'm not a politician. I'll call it as it is. So, please feel free. Ask me whatever you want.
Anybody?
Hi, Thomas. This is Vijay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can read.
Hi, Sunil.
Hi.
Great to interact with you, though I did not meet you when I was in PMI. But thanks to Thomas, this is a great opportunity. He created um, for me to interact. It just reminded me when you mentioned about the company that will be automated. Sometime back, there was a discussion, and nearly about, I'm talking about 5, 6 years back, how um, uh, companies will be interacting and doing business with each other in an automated fashion. An absolutely automated fashion. This was a thinking that even before AI was discussed, as to because the technology was so advanced and growing every day and advancing every day, one can really think that because of the so many applications that are coming up like ERP, CRM, so on and so forth, that very little human interaction will be there. So much will be automated that companies will be interacting with each other in just in a regular manner, doing business, etc., with very little human intervention, just checks and balances and so on. With now AI coming in and so on and so forth, how far do you think, or how soon do you think such a vision will be uh, will be achieved, or such will be realized?
I'm no expert, but it's something that scares me, because I think it's happening. I think that there are companies now that are completely autonomous. I think it's largely in the services area rather than manufacturing. And you get a lot of automation in manufacturing, but you know, there are AIs which are pivoting and changing and learning and changing the way they do things. And I think that's happening. And I do think that there'll be less and less procedural, repetitive work. And that will be not just at the automation level, I think also at the more senior level. Arkadar, the guy from ChatGPT, my buddy, he and I had a conversation just the other day, and he was saying there are now AIs for each board member of one of the companies that he's working for. And these AIs literally follow every single move, what that particular board member is doing or saying, or etc. And they record everything and learn everything. So much so that they start to almost act and make decisions like that particular board member would make. And so now you get to a situation where each of them has each of the board have a AI chat bot or whatever you want to call it, or something a bit more sophisticated. A problem is faced by the company, and instead of it going to the board, it goes to the different AIs who then debate amongst themselves what would be the best route of action to take, and then make a recommendation not to the CEO, but to the CEO's AI, who then says, okay, we should do this based upon what the chances are. This is what conclusion you as humans would come to, and we either agree or disagree, and that's what's going to the board. So you are getting to a situation where AI is really enhancing as a tool, beyond a tool, some key decision making. I don't know the answer to that. I definitely think there's enough out there, enough people talking about the way that jobs are going to be impacted significantly, and I agree with that. I think it is. I think it's going to really change the way work is done in the future. I don't know what the answer is, and people at the moment, and even I said, no, adaptability and judgment and orchestration are human things. Values, purpose. These are the things that maybe we'll need to double down on. And I think understanding AI is going to be table stakes, and any technology, it's going to be table stakes. If you don't know it, you'll be left behind. If you won't know how it works, you'll be left behind. I would ask any CEO of a company, if he's or she is using technology and AI to create a competitive advantage, how is that AI actually doing it? I mean, how is it literally actually doing it? Because if one AI can create competitive advantage, so can another. It's just maybe more sophisticated, more better, whatever. And so if the CEO can't explain how he's getting that competitive advantage, what is it specifically, then it's a problem, because then it can work against you. So, and the board won't be able to explain it because it's technology that they don't understand. So I think it's really important. I have two boys. One is a consultant, the other one is at university, and we are doubling down on their understanding of AI big time. And I am too. So largely through fear, because I want to know, what does it mean long term? So in order to do that, I need to understand it. And it's not just AI, it's data, it's data sovereignty, it's cybersecurity, all of the things are associated with it. You know, it's running away from us as a tool, and we need to control it. Would be my personal, and only my personal view.
Yeah, thanks, Sunil. I think that's very, very much appreciated, and also shared by many. These kind of feeling of uncertainty, what will happen with AI, and how to control it. So we have Jürgen. Jürgen also posted a kind of question. Although you said, Jürgen, it's not really a question, but now try to make a question out of it, please.
Well, okay. Thanks, Sunil, for your presentation and for your stories you have been telling. You talked about your motivation, and the motivation, it seemed to me like, and I have to admit that I know it very well. It's most interesting to start a new project, a new job, a new challenge, and to try to solve it, to finish it, and then to leave it to operations and go to the next project. That's something I can understand very well. And my question is, isn't that a mindset in general of most project managers?
Yeah, great question. I don't know, but what I would tell you is that it's definitely a mindset, because I know many people who like to build and run. Okay, and so if you said to me, okay, Sunil, there's a project to build. I mean, let's be silly and stupid, but there's a project to build a bridge. That would not excite me. That start and the finish would not excite me. What excites me is if someone said we need to create a bank that's going to run for the next 50 years, and services are going to change and morph and have a personality and a brand and everything, and it's going to be something that's going to create something that's going to evolve as it develops with technology and with people and everything, and we need you to set it up and set it on that path. That excites me. No, I don't. I'm okay with running it, but I get bored of running it. I remember when I was doing accounting, every month end, it was the same project. I mean, during the 4 weeks, we'd do the actuals, or we would do transactions, and then we'd come to this 1 week where we'd just repetitively 12 times a year do a month-end close. And after you do it the first time, it's exciting. Second time, you learn how to do it a little bit better. Third time, you kind of like optimize. Then the fourth time, it's boring. Fifth time, it gets boring. Sixth time, it's even more. Then it becomes excruciating. And then it becomes, by the time you're done it the 10th time, it's like, you're finishing your sentence. You wish you were doing something else. And then you do that 3, 4, 5. I did that for 5 years, right? And by the end of it, I was like, there's got to be more to life than doing this monthly, day in, day out, day in, day out. So I think that's a mindset. There are some people who love that. I remember David Constantine, who's my financial accountant. He loved it. He just loved the commonality, the same thing month after month after month, because he said, I don't have to think too much. I know I'm a subject matter expert. I just do it with my eyes closed. Done. It's clean. It's accurate. It's fine. Me, I was like, okay, I just outsource it to him and say, well, you do it then, because I need to go and do the next big thing, So that's a mindset thing. And I've always said, look, there's 3 things, right? It's you have the skill, and you have the mind. If you have the mind in the right space, and then the most important thing is heart, and that's the thing that heart set. And I remember talking with my team at PMI saying it's the heart set is unique differentiator of PMI. It's got the skills. It's talking about the skills all the time. It's talking about having the right mindset to be able to build on your project management career. But the key thing that is the key differentiator is the volunteer mindset, the not-for-profits. It matters. It matters to people, and the give back attitude. That's heart set. That's the strongest of all three: skill set, mindset, heart set. And I used to remember talking with Joe and all the other guys saying that we need to double down on that. That is, if you're a chartered accountant, you've got the skill set and the mindset. If you're if you're a surgeon, you've got the skill set and the mindset. What you haven't got, the thing that you need to get, that gets a person into university, go through all of those things, is their heart. It matters to them. And that's the thing that, I would say, for me, what matters is not to get into a routine. Embrace discomfort, look for performance, focus on the people, and have purpose.
Thanks a lot.
That's like a closing statement almost.
I don't know if that answered your question or not, to be honest. Hopefully it did.
Sure you did. Thank you.
So, any other questions? No, we had 2 questions now. Maybe 3 is a good number to close with. Anybody?
Jennifer, anything from you? Is she still there? Roberto, anything from you? We've both worked very closely together.
Yeah.
Any of this resonate with you?
Oh yes, lots of memories. Thank you for the recount of the time that we spent together in the board. It was comforting to hear you again, Sunil. It was great to hear you. Thank you. No questions from me. Just thankful for seeing you and hearing you. And good luck on your new endeavors. Nice to see you.
So, AS, Ayman, you have a question?
Yes, just a little questions for Mr. Sunil. Actually, I remember when you changed the exams to online exams. It was in your year, I think, when you are CEO.
Yes.
After this, you have about 3 or 4 videos about the threats you faced while you are during this transformation. Threats in AIs and threats as a cyber securities. How did you handle all of these problems or these projects? Was it as a project manager or as a program manager or as a portfolio manager? How did you handle? What is the methodologies when you are dealing with this?
To be very honest, I mean, this was Mike DePrisco should take all the credit for helping us move to online examinations. I mean, his team did an amazing job, and we did have problems. We were also faced with COVID at the time, and so we were working remotely, and there were many challenges. And I don't know whether it was there was a structured approach to how we handled all those challenges. I'm sure there was. It was not close to me. Mike did a ton of the work there, and he did a great, absolutely brilliant job, to be honest. And we had a lot of teething problems. We had cybersecurity issues. We had people that were trying to, sit exams on behalf of other people, and all sorts of issues like this that we had to deal with. And slowly, systematically, we went through each one bit by bit. I don't know if we ever got to complete closure on everything, but I know at the beginning it was a nightmare. We had to select the right technology. We had to make sure we had the right process in place. We had to make sure that we had the right guardrails. All of that side in the brains at the beginning when we were considering doing this. I remember we did a workshop. I remember it now. We did a workshop saying, okay, what are all the things that could go wrong as we start to move over here? And we had one company that was helping us, and we were thinking about moving that company to another company. And Mike again took a part in that, saying the company we were using didn't have the same level of technology that we needed, and so we flipped to a different company, and that caused a problem as well. So yeah, it was a complex process. Mike DePrisco, who then became interim CEO after I left, he should take all the credit for that. He did a great job. So I haven't really specifically answered your question. I mean, was there a structured process? Was there a unique way of doing this? No. The answer was no. We tried to anticipate what kind of issues we were going to have through a workshop. We identified how we might be able to mitigate those and whether they were important or not, i.e. could they disrupt what we were trying to do? If they weren't, then they were deprioritized. So we did a prioritization stack ranking. And then we systematically attacked each one of them one by one as we started to get evidence, and then ensured that it was industrially introduced. Now, I don't think we ever got to a 100% closed system, but we moved, and and to be honest, had we not done it, we would have been in big trouble because of COVID, and we had to. So it's one of those things. There's no textbook to tell you how to do this.
Well, when I hear you about that, I feel that's a kind of risk management approach. You had a workshop, you identified things that could go wrong, and then you try to mitigate them, and you moved on that in a cyclic way. So it's a typical risk management approach.
The best example really is COVID and how we approach COVID. That I've never seen anyone else do anything as good as that in my entire career. Now, I'm not taking credit for it because it was collective, and my job was just to sort of spearhead the team. But the thinking that the team put into, we had these 3 books. We had a black book, we had a red book, and we had a green book. And each book represented a scenario, and so and the set of actions that we would take that would happen if that scenario became reality. So black book was like Armageddon. We know there's no vaccine. We don't know where this goes. It accelerates. It becomes uncontrollable. What do we do? What would that look like? What would be the actions we would take step by step if that happened? Red book was, okay, we're going to get a vaccine, but it's going to take 24 months or maybe even longer. But there is a path. And that has a completely different set of actions, different set of outcomes, a different set of mitigation. And then there was green book, and that had, okay, we'll get a vaccine and we'll be able to stand back up again in 12 months. And we flitted between every day. We had a meeting, and we had one guy, Kerman. His job was to just search on the internet and on the news anything that he learns about COVID. What's happening? Where are we with the vaccine? Where are we? What's happening in this country? What's happening there? And every day it would start with him briefing everybody. Okay, look, this is what happened overnight. Here's where we are. We are tending more towards red book. Are we moving back towards green book? Are we moving back towards black book? Where are we going? And then we would all say, okay, how close are we to making this decision? And we had to keep the board involved in all of this at the same time. And so we were navigating this whole process without knowing what the outcome's going to be, taking input from all over the world, and at the same time giving to a whole ton of different massive companies that also didn't know which way to go. And we were advising them. I remember advising Julie Sweet of Accenture, the CEO of Accenture, saying you should do this and you should do that. We did this, we did that. And we're little PMI compared to Accenture, 750,000 employees. And she's coming to us for advice, and me and my team. And we were giving it. And they were like, these guys are really thinking, And so that to me is the ultimate, example of something that was absolutely unique. And it's a damn shame we can't even package that into a story or into a case study, because the content of what we did, and I'll just brush the surface of it, is enormous. If you look at the detail that we went into in each one of these books about what we would have to do and how we would have to tell the board and how we'd have to tell the chapters, and if we're going in a certain direction, why, what's the evidence to support it, and so on and so forth, for each of those books, is your ultimate risk mitigation approach. That is not written in any textbook. That was something we designed as the leadership of PMI.
That would be a very nice article to share how PMI did it, how you managed it.
Yes, really.
Florian, let me. I see the timing, And
I think we have still the time for the question of Munina. If we have 5 minutes, and I will do in 2 minutes the end, and there is no problem.
Good, great. So Munina, your question, please.
You're muted, Monina. You're muted, Monina.
Munina, unmute.
Yes, thank you. Now it's fine. Yes, so thank you so much, Sunil, for your sharing, and I was really happy to learn more about your journey and your perspective as well. And there is a subject that I'm really interested in. It is about vulnerability, and I believe that this is a subject that in leadership discussions we don't talk more about it. And my question is that as a leader, what make you stand when everything gets chaotic? It can be a mindset or a book or anything else. I would love to hear about that. Thank you.
I'm so glad you asked that question, and you know, we probably will run out of time, but I think it's, you know, I work in a very hostile environment at times, and it can be very draining. And you're making decisions that really impact people's careers and lives. And sometimes those decisions aren't good ones. You know, at Nokia, I had to fire 10,000 people. That's not easy. And it has an effect on those people, of course. It has a huge effect on them, but it also has an effect on the person who's doing it. You know, and if I didn't do it, then the company wouldn't exist today. And in fact, what I had to get rid of was a lot less than what other people had to get rid of in operations and other parts of the business. So to get yourself out of that, you know, I mean, in Saudi, I've taken up diving. So I dive pretty much. I'm in scuba diving. I'm trying to get my master's in scuba diving. I started to play the piano. I started to play the guitar. I love to go out into the desert, and you might have seen some LinkedIn photos of me in the desert. I go out camping in the desert. It gets away from everything and everyone in Riyadh. So really try to embrace these types of spaces where I've got time for myself. When you are scuba diving, you need to be really calm. You need to be, you know, you're in an alien part of the world. You're not supposed to be down there, right? And so you need to be really calm, and you need to breathe, and you need to be able to be slow, and you need to be able to think, be rational when the irrational happens around you. So I find that environment invigorating, because it kind of, in a very nice way, replicates what happens at work, but does it in my own controlled environment, you know, with me. So that's a few of the things that I try to do. I'm also big time into yoga and keep fit as well. So it's not all just about work. All of those things that I just talked about, scuba diving, learning to play the guitar, you know, going to the desert, each one of those is a project. It is. Each one of those requires planning. Each one of those costs money. Each one of those needs an outcome. Each one of them, and it's more than just having a good time. It's about helping relax your mind, so you can then go back and, you know, with a fresh pair of eyes, a fresh mind, and apply your trade. And if you don't do it, you know, you will eventually run out of steam. So I would urge you to do those kind of things.
No, thanks, Sunil. It was a amazing journey, and I'll hand over to Florian to close down.
So thank you again, Sunil. I think we are all amazed by your journey, because it's really a journey from Africa to Liverpool to now Saudi Arabia. So it was really insightful to have your feedback from your past, but as well for your future. And it's because we, as project manager, we always try to go towards the future. So thank you again for this presentation.
You're welcome, Florian. Thanks a lot to Thomas, actually, for